Hi, everyone. Welcome to the IO Edge, where industrial organizational psychology meets the fast-paced world of modern HR. I'm your host, Dr. Jacqueline Minor. This podcast is dedicated to HR professionals, managers, and IO psychologists looking to lead with insight, strategy, and confidence. Whether you're an HR professional looking to level up or an IO psych grad wondering where you fit in the business world, this podcast gives you the tools and insight to lead with purpose. On today's podcast, we will discuss bias in the hiring process, what IO research tells us. In this episode, we'll explore what bias in hiring looks like, how it impacts organizations, and what industrial organizational psychology research tells us about mitigating these biases. We'll also discuss practical strategies and real-world examples to help you create a more equitable hiring process. We'll be referencing several key studies and articles throughout this episode, including works by Richichi and insights from the eCornell keynote by Devin Proudfoot. So let's get started. So definitions and types of biases. So bias in hiring refers to the unfair preference or prejudice against certain candidates based on factors unrelated to their job performance. There are several types of bias that can occur during the hiring process. One is unconscious bias. So this type of bias happens without conscious awareness. So for example, a hiring manager might favor candidates who share similar backgrounds or interests without realizing it. The next is confirmation bias. This occurs when a hiring manager looks for information that confirms their pre-existing beliefs about a candidate, ignoring evidence to the contrary. Affinity bias. This is the tendency to prefer candidates who are similar to oneself, whether in terms of background, interest, or other characteristics. Let's consider some real-world examples. A study by Richichi found that resumes with ethnic-sounding names received fewer callbacks than those with white-sounding names, even when qualifications were identical. Another example is the tendency to favor candidates from prestigious universities over those from less well-known institutions, regardless of actual skills and experience. These examples highlight the pervasive nature of bias in hiring and underscore the importance of addressing it. Role of IO psychology in identifying bias. So industrial and organizational psychology plays a crucial role in identifying and mitigating bias in hiring. IO psychologists study workplace behavior and use their findings to develop strategies that promote fair and effective hiring practices. Research in IO psychology has uncovered several key insights. The impact of bias on hiring outcomes. Bias can significantly affect the diversity and quality of hires. So for instance, biased hiring practices can lead to a homogeneous workforce, which can stifle creativity and innovation. Some strategies to mitigate bias. Evidence-based strategies include using structured interviews, standardized evaluation criteria, and blind recruitment processes to reduce the influence of bias. These insights are supported by numerous studies, including those discussed in the eCornell keynote by Devin Proudfoot. So structured hiring processes. Industrial and organizational psychology is not only about identifying bias, it's about designing systems that foster equity, performance, and well-being. IO psychologists apply empirical methods to understand how psychological principles affect workplace behavior, including hiring decisions. Their work spans job analyses, personnel selection, organizational development, and diversity management, as referenced by Cascio and Agnes. When we look at cognitive mechanisms behind bias, research shows that bias in hiring often stems from cognitive shortcuts known as heuristics. For example, the representativeness heuristics can lead hiring managers to favor candidates who look the part even if they lack relevant experience, per Persky and Kahneman. IO psychologists help organizations recognize these patterns and implement safeguards. As we look at the structured interviews and predictive validity, one of the most robust contributions from IO psychology is the development of structured interviews. Studies consistently show that structured interviews, where each candidate is asked the same questions and rated using standardized criteria, have higher predictive validity than unstructured ones. This reduces the influence of subjective impressions and increases fairness. Biopsychologists advocate for work sample tests and SJTs, which simulate job tasks or dilemmas. These tools are less susceptible to bias and better predictors of job performance. So, for example, SJTs have been shown to reduce adverse impact while maintaining validity across diverse applicant pools. The role of technology in algorithmic bias. So while AI tools are increasingly used in hiring, psychologists caution against blind reliance. Algorithms trained on biased data can perpetuate discrimination. IO research emphasizes the importance of auditing algorithms for fairness and transparency per binds. Psychologists also contribute to designing ethical frameworks for AI use in HR. As we look at organizational culture and bias reduction, beyond tools and tests, IO psychology emphasizes the role of organizational culture. A culture that values diversity and inclusion can mitigate bias at every stage of hiring. Research by Richichi shows that inclusive climates lead to better engagement and performance among underrepresented groups. As we turn to training and debiasing interventions, IO psychologists design training programs that go beyond awareness. Effective debiasing interventions include perspective-taking exercises, accountability structures, and decision-making checklists. Meta-analysis suggests that such interventions can reduce bias, especially when reinforced over time. Longitudinal impact of bias mitigation. So long-term studies reveal that organizations that adopt IO-informed hiring practices see improvements in workforce diversity, innovation, and employee retention. So for example, a longitudinal study by Hallman et al. Found that diverse teams with inclusive norms outperform homogeneous teams in problem-solving tasks. So in summary, IO psychology provides a scientific foundation for understanding and mitigating bias in hiring. From structured interviews to ethical AI, its tools and insights help organizations build fair, more effective hiring systems. Up next, we will explore how these principles translate into practical strategies you can implement today. So one of the most effective ways to combat bias is to implement structured hiring processes. This means using standardized interview questions and evaluation criteria for all candidates. By doing so, you ensure that each candidate is assessed based on the same criteria, reducing the influence of personal biases. Blind recruiting. So blind recruitment involves removing identifying information from applications such as names, gender, and age. This helps to ensure that candidates are evaluated solely on their qualifications and experience. Studies have shown that blind recruitment can significantly increase the diversity of candidates who make it to the interview stages. Training and awareness. Educating hiring managers and HR professionals about bias and how to counteract it is another crucial strategy. Training programs can help individuals recognize their own biases and provide them with tools to make more objective hiring decisions. Technology and tools. Finally, technology can play a role in reducing bias. AI and other tools can assist in screening resumes and identifying the best candidates based on objective criteria. However, it's important to ensure that these tools are designed and used in ways that do not perpetuate existing biases. These strategies are discussed in detail in the article Implicit and Unconscious Bias During the Hiring Process. Case study number 1. Let's look at a case study of a company that successfully reduced bias in their hiring process. Company X implemented blind recruitment and saw a 30% increase in the diversity of their hires within 6 months. They also reported higher levels of employee satisfaction and retention. Case study number 2. Another example is Company Y, which introduced structured interviews and standardized evaluation criteria. As a result, they were able to reduce the influence of bias and improve the overall quality of their hires. They also saw a significant increase in the representation of underrepresented groups in their workforce. So these case studies highlight the importance of taking proactive steps to address bias in hiring, implementing structured processes, blind recruitment, and training programs. Organizations can create a more equitable and effective hiring process. So to recap, bias in hiring is a significant issue that can affect the diversity and quality of hires. IO psychology provides valuable insights into how bias occurs and how it can be mitigated. Practical strategies such as structured hiring processes, blind recruitment, and training programs can help reduce bias and promote fairness. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. On our next episode, we will be sitting down with our special guest, Duval Kumar Jossi, as we unpack HR data with the human lens, evaluating the hiring process with biopsychology. Be sure to subscribe to stay connected to the conversation at the intersection of psychology, business, and human resources. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Minor. I'll see you soon.